In the twilight-hushed realm of Eldraver, where the mountains hum lullabies and rivers whisper secrets to the stars, a girl with fire in her veins stood beneath the ancient veil of embers. Her name was Lysaria, born on the night of a blood-red moon, when the sky wept ash and the wind carried the scent of scorched roses. The midwives who helped deliver her spoke of warmth in her cradle and smoke curling through the rafters, though no hearth was lit that eve. On her shoulder shimmered a strange mark, twisting like a serpent, spreading like wings, a dragon's shape, pulsing with faint golden heat whenever the moonlight touched her skin. The villagers of Glenvar Hollow whispered her name only in hushed tones, for ancient tales told of a time when the blood of dragons walked in human form, chosen or cursed by fate. They feared not her kindness, nor her quiet voice that soothed wounded birds and calmed crying children. They feared the prophecy etched in runes older than the village itself, hidden in the forbidden pages of the Eldritch manuscript, buried beneath the temple ruins. Each night, shadows stretched like velvet claws across the valley. Lysaria would leave her cottage silently, her silver braid swaying like moonlight caught in motion, and climb the winding path to Wyvern's Rest, a circle of ancient stones set high on a moss-covered hill where the stars always seemed closer and the air shimmered with unseen power. It was there she heard the first true song of the wind, not the breeze of ordinary skies, but the breath of ancient wings, low, distant, yearning. And one night, as she stood beneath the constellation of the sleeping flame, the wind carried more than sound. A voice, deeper than thunder, yet gentle as dusk, whispered, "The dragon maiden shall rise when the stars forget their names." Startled but unafraid, Lysaria listened, and the mark on her shoulder grew warm, then hot, then blazing with golden fire, though it did not burn her flesh. Instead, it opened her sight, truly opened it, to visions swirling behind her eyes, towers floating in the clouds, dragons of every hue spiraling through the air, and beneath them, a great hall of breath, lined with crystal books that sang when opened. She saw herself among others, cloaked in robes threaded with starlight, each bearing a mark: phoenixes, leviathans, griffons, all connected by glowing threads that led back to a single mountain, Belthorn's Peak. The vision faded like mist at dawn, and Lysaria fell to her knees, heart fluttering like a trapped ember. She whispered to the silent stones, "What am I becoming?" But no answer came, only a sudden stillness, as if the land itself were holding breath. The next morning, a traveler arrived at the village inn, cloaked in gray with a staff carved like dragon bone. He did not speak much, but his eyes, gold flecked and ancient, lingered on Lysaria when she passed. That night, a scroll wrapped in flame-red silk appeared beneath her door. Its parchment was soft as cloud fiber and warm to the touch, and the ink shimmered like molten gold as she unrolled it. The message read, "The sky remembers what the earth forgets. The oath stirs. The Ember School awakens. A place awaits you beyond the mists of Serathiel. Your journey begins at dawn. Burn the scroll when the moon kisses the peak." With trembling fingers, she climbed again to Wyvern's Rest, waiting until moonlight touched the tallest stone and set the scroll alight with a single breath. The flame danced without sound, and where the scroll had burned, a sigil hovered in the air, glowing softly, the mark of the Ember School, a dragon encircling a star, its tail biting its own flame. And then came the dreams. Night after night, they pulled her skyward, across floating bridges of light and mist, to a citadel of cloudstone and moonglass, where dragons rested coiled around towers, and students trained in silence beneath glowing runes. She dreamt of a library where books breathed, of instructors with wings beneath their cloaks, and of a hidden chamber behind a waterfall of stardust, sealed by blood, opened only by one who bore the dragon's mark. This chamber held the last fragment of a broken prophecy, long lost to time. It spoke of a coming dusk, not the end of day, but the end of ages, when stars would fall and silence would devour flame unless the oath was renewed. And at its center, a name echoed through the walls and into her soul. She who carries flame not born of this world shall rise, or all shall fall. Lysaria woke with tears on her cheeks, not of fear, but of knowing. The world she loved, with its quiet meadows and sleepy streams, was but a cradle for something far greater. And she, the quiet girl with the silver braid and dragon-shaped birthmark, was no longer merely watching the sky. She was meant to rise through it. At dawn, she stood at the edge of Glenvar Hollow, cloak clasped with the mark of flame, her staff newly carved from windwood. Behind her, the village lay sleeping, unaware of the story unfolding in silence. Ahead, the path led through the rising mist to the floating stair that would carry her to the school above the sky, to dragons who dreamed through her breath, and to a promise sealed in flame. She closed her eyes, exhaled, and whispered through the wind, "I am ready." Lysaria stepped onto the first stair of light, and the air beneath her shimmered like a dream half remembered. The staircase rose from the mist without end or beginning, each step humming faintly beneath her feet, reacting to the warmth of her mark. She did not look down. Below her, Glenbar Hollow disappeared into morning haze, and above, the sky opened like a great breath being drawn. The wind changed. It no longer whispered, it guided. With every step, she felt lighter, not only in body, but in thought. The doubts she carried like stones in her chest began to fall away, and when she reached the final step, there was no platform, no door, only sky. But the sky moved. It parted like a silk curtain, revealing towers woven from cloudstone and flame glass, floating gently in the air as if tethered to stars unseen. Dragons circled high above, their wings catching sun rays, casting slow-moving shadows across the floating city. And in the center of it all, a single bell rang out, not with sound, but with feeling, like warmth pouring into the soul. She had arrived at Serathiel, the Ember School. At the edge of a hovering marble platform, a tall woman awaited her, cloak flickering with soft orange runes, her eyes pale and piercing. "Lysaria of Glenbar Hollow," she said. "Welcome to the Skybound Order." Lysaria followed her guide across bridges that sang beneath their steps, through courtyards lit by drifting fire lanterns, past quiet gardens where other students sat in meditation, each bearing a different mark that shimmered when touched by light. Some had feathers, others vines. A few even glowed faintly with symbols too old to name. She was led to a stone terrace, open to the wind, where a dragon rested, its scales the color of morning frost, its eyes ancient but calm. Beside it stood Master Varion. "I am Keeper of Fleeing Memory," he said. "And this is Azrath, my bonded." Azrath dipped his head in greeting, and Lysaria felt something stir in her chest, as if a forgotten song had returned to her breath. "You will learn to listen before you speak, to still the flame before you wield it," Varian continued. "The oath is not power, it is balance." So began her training. Days passed in rhythm with the sky, lessons carved into memory by voice and silence alike. She studied the lore of wing and flame, learned the old names of dragons, and traced glowing runes in the air that responded only to breath. She sparred with firelight shadows, danced across floating stones suspended in wind, and drank from pools that reflected not her image, but her fears. Still, the question remained, what is the oath? No one would answer directly. "It is older than fire," said one scroll. It was broken before it was kept, whispered a teacher. Then one night, beneath the twin moons, the bell rang again, but this time cold. Students gathered in the grand aetherium, a great chamber without walls, where the stars themselves could be seen moving overhead. At the center stood the headmistress, cloaked in robes of pale fire, her dragon coiled around a tower behind her, as still as stone. "A stirring has come from the east," she said. "The flame of Velthrin has dimmed." Gasps moved through the hall, like ripples in glass. "One among you must travel to the maw, where the first fragment of the oath was hidden in the Age of Ash." Lysaria's mark flared suddenly, a pulse of golden heat that lit the air around her. The headmistress turned her gaze directly to her. "You are chosen," she said. "The flame within you remembers the shape of truth." That night, Lysaria stood alone at the edge of the sky bridge, looking into the clouds below. She was not afraid, but she was no longer certain of who she had been. The wind whispered around her again, and this time the voice returned. Asterisk. Not all dragons breathe fire. Some carry memory, some carry sorrow. You will carry choice. And she understood. The oath was not a weapon. It was a promise, made in an age when dragons and humans still shared breath, a bond forged to protect balance, and if broken, both sky and stone would fall. She inhaled deeply, feeling her chest expand with more than breath. She whispered into the wind, "I accept the burden. I will find the fragment. I will keep the oath." The journey to the maw of Velthrin began before the sun had risen. Lysaria stood on the eastern sky bridge with a small satchel, her windwood staff, and a whisper of flame tucked behind her ribs. The skies were pale and heavy, a storm brewing somewhere beyond the horizon, but she walked forward without hesitation. She was not alone. By order of the headmistress, 2 companions were chosen to join her. Pale, marked by the sigil of the thunder serpent, and Irene, bonded to a white-feathered wyvern of the north. Neither spoke much, but they walked in rhythm, step by step, over cloud bridges and wind-woven trails, toward the place where the world cracked open. The maw was not a mountain. It was a wound, a vast crater of black stone, rimmed with jagged cliffs, where lava pulsed like breath beneath the earth. No birds flew there, no wind whispered, only silence, hot and watching. they descended slowly, guided by markings carved centuries ago into the stone, left by the first oath bearers. And at the base of the maw, curled around an obsidian altar, lay the guardian, a dragon unlike any Lysaria had ever seen, its scales deep crimson with veins of gold, its wings half folded, its eyes closed, but it was not asleep. Its breath was slow, measured, and with every exhale, ash drifted upward like snow. "This is Valmorix," Gale whispered. "He has not spoken in 100 years. Irene stepped forward first, bowing low, then Gale, and finally Lysaria, who approached with her heart drumming in her ears. As she neared the altar, the dragon's eye opened. It glowed with molten gold, and through the silence, a voice entered her mind. Ancient and vast, you carry the breath of the oath. Why do you come? Lysaria inhaled, letting the fire rise gently beneath her words. To recover the first fragment, she said, and to renew what was broken. The dragon watched her, his gaze searching far deeper than her skin. Moments passed. Then, with a sound like cracking stone, Valmorix unfolded his wings. From beneath his chest, a shard of burning crystal rose slowly into the air, hovering before Lysaria. It pulsed in time with her heartbeat. As she reached out, fire licked her fingers, but it did not harm her. Instead, it revealed. Visions struck her mind, not of places, but of choices. A war that once burned the sky. A dragon queen who gave up her wings to protect peace. A council of flame-bound keepers who betrayed their own oath. And above it all, a single flame, untouched, waiting. She gasped, closing her hand around the shard. It dimmed, then flared, then melted into her palm, vanishing. When she looked up, Valmorix was watching her, but no longer with test or judgment, with recognition. "You have taken the first breath," he said, "but others will try to silence it. The oath is not only yours, it is hunted." With those words, his wings folded again, and his eyes closed. Silence returned. Lysaria turned to her companions, and they began the ascent. But the sky had changed. Clouds twisted far above, dark and heavy, and a shape moved between them, vast and winged, a presence that did not belong to the school, nor to any dragon Lysaria had seen. Something else had awakened. The sky groaned as if stirred from ancient sleep. Stormlight cracked above the maw of Velthrin, but no thunder followed. Lysaria looked up and saw the shape again, a silhouette too vast to be cloud, too silent to be dragon. It moved like smoke through the sky, wings stretched wide, and for a moment the stars behind it blinked out. "That is no guardian," Irene whispered, her wyvern tensing beside her. "That is hunted sky." Kale raised his hand, murmuring a word of silence, but even that seemed to dissolve in the wind. Something was watching them, something that had been waiting. The three began their return to Serathiel, ascending the cliff's edge through ash and silence. Lysaria could feel the first fragment pulsing inside her like a second heartbeat. It had fused to her spirit, not as a weight, but as a tether to something far greater. But with every step upward, she sensed the presence drawing closer. When they reached the upper ridge, the sky opened again, and it fell. Black wings tore through the clouds, massive and silent, followed by a roar not made of sound but pressure, as if the world itself inhaled. The creature landed before them, shaking the stone, and Lysaria saw it clearly for the first time. It was draconic, but wrong. Its wings were torn at the edges, eyes veiled in shadow, scales dulled like old metal. A corrupted dragon, a hollow flame. "Give it to me," it hissed into their minds, voice scraping like dry bones across frost. "The flame does not belong to you." Kale stepped forward, lightning flaring around his fists, but before he could strike, the hollow leapt. Its claws swept wide, and Kale was thrown into the rock wall, groaning. Irene's wyvern lunged, snapping fire at the beast's flank, forcing it back only inches. Lysaria stood alone in front of the altar now, wind tearing at her cloak. The shard inside her burned brighter, and she knew she couldn't run. She drew her staff and placed one hand to her mark. The flame rose within her, not in anger, but in clarity. She she spoke no words. Instead, she stepped forward and breathed. From her lips poured golden light, not fire, but memory. The hollow staggered, its wings recoiling, its shape flickering. It shrieked in a language no longer spoken, and in that moment, Lysaria saw it clearly. It had once been a dragon of the Ember School. It had once held the oath, but it had turned away, broken itself to escape a promise it feared to keep. You failed the fire, she said quietly, and now you fear what it remembers. The creature lunged again, claws outstretched, but Lysaria raised her staff and struck the earth. A wave of memory erupted, images of dragons in peace, students studying among the clouds, the forging of the oath in blood and breath. Rolo let out one last roar and dissolved into smoke, torn apart not by force, but by truth. Silence fell. Kale staggered to his feet. Irene helped steady him, her wyvern circling cautiously overhead. That thing knew you, Kyle muttered. Or it knew what you were becoming. Lysaria looked at her hands, then toward the sky. It wasn't just hunting me, she said. It was guarding something else. She turned toward the altar again and saw something they had missed in the shadows. A carved ring of stone, glowing faintly. Inside it, etched in dragon script, was a message. Only when the first breath is kept in silence shall the second be born in fire. Lysaria stepped forward, placing her palm on the inscription. The earth beneath her shimmered, and a path opened, ascending not into sky, but deeper into the mountain. Kale and Irene looked at her. We follow, Kale said simply. And without another word, the three stepped into the hidden stair, unaware that at the summit of Serathiel, a second bell had begun to ring. The stair spiraled downward, carved not by hand but by dragon claw, its walls etched with glowing runes that pulsed in rhythm with Lysaria's mark. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became, until even the echo of their footsteps faded into breathless silence. No sound, no wind, only the slow hum of ancient memory embedded in stone. At the base of the path, the stair ended at a great door formed from obsidian and starlight. Across its surface curled an engraving of a dragon sleeping inside a flame, its eye a single golden gem. As Lysaria stepped forward, the gem lit, and the door spoke. Only the oath-bound may enter. Speak the first flame. Lysaria hesitated. Then she closed her eyes, placed her hand over her heart, and whispered, "I breathe not to burn, but to remember." The door melted into mist, and the chamber revealed itself. It was vast, round, and impossibly old. Bookshelves spiraled upward like trees woven from wind. Scrolls floated mid-air, and crystals blinked softly in patterns too precise to be random. At its center was a flame, not fire, not heat, just light, hovering, constant, alive. Beside it stood a figure, not human, not dragon, something in between. He was cloaked in robes made of ash, his face hidden beneath a hood that shimmered with forgotten stars. "At last, asterisk," he said. "The flame bearer returns." Lysaria stepped forward slowly, Kale and Irene at her sides. Silent. "Who are you?" she asked. "I was the first flame keeper," the figure said, "and the last to witness the oath before it shattered." He turned toward the floating flame, his hand trembling. "This is the silent flame. It holds memory older than speech, older than dragons, older than sky." The chamber dimmed, and from the flame, visions unfolded. Lysaria saw the age of flame born, when dragon and human were bonded in breath. She saw a council of 13 oath keepers, swearing to protect balance, not power. And then a betrayal. One of the keepers, driven by fear, had split the oath, breaking the bond, casting the flame into fragments hidden across the world. The first fragment in Velthrin, the second in the sky vault above Serathiel, the third lost, and the fourth sealed in the breath of a dragon who no longer remembers its own name. "Why me?" Lysaria asked. Voice barely more than wind. The keeper turned. "Because you are born of both silence and spark. Because your fire does not hunger, it listens. You will reforge the oath," he said, "or you will watch the sky fall." A low rumble echoed through the chamber, and for the first time since they entered, Lysaria felt cold. Someone has entered the school, Irene said, eyes narrowing. Someone not called. The keeper nodded solemnly. The hollow flame was only the first, he whispered. They are drawn to the fragments. One walks your halls, no one's skin you trust. Kale stepped forward. You mean a traitor? No, the keeper said. I mean a shadow wearing the name of a friend. Silence fell, sharp as blade. Then the keeper raised his hand, and from the silent flame, a second fragment emerged. Not physical, but etched in air, a pattern of breath and rhythm, a verse spoken by flame. It entered Lysaria, not through her hand, but through her lungs. She inhaled, and her mark glowed like a sunrise. You now carry the second flame, the keeper said. You must return to Serathiel. Find the shadow before it finds the vault. The future does not wait, and neither does the dark. The return to Serathiel was swift and wordless, clouds parting before them as if the wind itself feared delay. Lysaria's breath felt heavier now, not with exhaustion, but with knowing. Two flames now pulsed in her spirit, one from fire, the other from silence, and both seemed to listen to every heartbeat she gave. Irene flew above on her wyvern, eyes fixed on the horizon, while Kale moved like lightning behind her, his mark flickering with tension. As Serathiel came into view, its towers glimmered like they always had, but the light felt off. Wrong. Clouds hung lower, the sun dimmer, and from the eastern wing of the school, smoke coiled upward in strange spirals. We're too late, Kale muttered. The school's gates opened without sound, and within, students stood frozen in the courtyards, eyes wide, whispers rising like fog. No one met their gaze. No one smiled. They felt it, Irene said. Something passed through here. The bell tower did not chime. The wind held its breath. Lysaria stepped into the hall of breath, expecting warmth, but was met by cold. Not frost, but absence, as if memory had been drained from the walls. A figure stood near the reflecting pool, back turned, robes dark as ink. Master Elron, Lysaria called. The figure turned, and the face that met her was not his. It wore his features, but wrong. His eyes were pale, almost silver, and empty. The vault opened soon, he said softly. And you bring the keys. Kyle stepped forward, lightning coiling around his arms. But before he could move, the false Elrond vanished. No shimmer, no wind, just absence. Irene growled low, her wyvern circling above through a broken skylight. The shadow wears many names, she said, and all of them familiar. They ran to the Tower of Stars, the vault's heart, and found the doors already open. Not broken, but invited. Within the chamber, flames floated mid-air in glass orbs, each one containing fragments of breath, whispers of those who once held the oath. But one orb was dark, shattered. The third flame was gone. He took it, Lysaria said, her voice calm, almost too calm. But as she spoke, something pulsed deep below the school. Not above, not ahead, but beneath. The floor trembled. A low sound, like a hum in reverse. From the cracks between stone tiles, smoke rose, not black, but violet. Memory twisted. Lysaria staggered, visions flooding her mind without warning. She saw a child beneath Serathiel, lost in the archives, reaching for a flame he should not have touched. She saw a dragon weep molten tears, sealing away the third fragment inside the roots of the mountain. And she saw herself older, standing at a gate made of bone and breath, holding flame in both hands. Then darkness. She fell to one knee. Kale caught her. What did you see? He asked. The flame wasn't stolen, she said. It woke itself. It's calling from beneath. The walls trembled again, and stairs split open beneath the vault. Irene blinked in awe. There were always rumors. A forbidden archive, the root of the school. It's not a rumor, Lysaria said. It's where the oath was born and where it fractured. She stepped into the opening. Kyle followed. Irene paused only a second before joining them. The stair wound downward in sharp turns, older than the stones above, older than breath. As they descended, they passed murals carved in dragon language, scenes of joy, then war, then fire-consuming sky, and then silence. Not emptiness, but a sealed hush At the bottom, a door of glass waited. It showed not reflection, but truth. As Lysaria approached, the door whispered, "You who bear the first and second breath may now seek the third, but once entered, memories shall burn." Lysaria inhaled slowly. "Let it burn," she said. Asterisk. "I will remember. I will rise. I will keep the oath." The glass door dissolved as Lysaria spoke, melting into silver mist that shimmered and drifted downward like falling stars. Beyond it, the passage narrowed into a long corridor, its walls alive with veins of light pulsing softly beneath translucent crystal. The air grew warm, then heavy, and the silence here was not stillness, it was memory so thick it could not be spoken. They walked slowly, breath held as if not to disturb what slept within the stone. The hallway opened into a vast chamber, unlike any in Serathiel. It was circular, built not of sky materials or enchanted stone, but living root-thick, ancient roots of a tree no one had ever seen, woven into walls, spiraling into the ceiling, and vanishing deep below. At the center of the chamber stood a flame-low blue, steady, and around it 7 stone thrones, each carved with different sigils. 6 were empty. The 7th was occupied. A figure sat motionless, cloaked in robes of ash gray and copper, a hood casting shadow over the face. Lysaria stepped forward, her voice soft. "Who are you?" The figure did not move, but a breath escaped its lips, and with it, a name whispered itself through the room. "I am Orara, the Oathbreaker, the keeper who chose silence." Kale tensed, his hand lighting faintly with energy, but Lysaria raised in stillness. The flame in the center flickered once, as if it too remembered that name. "You were one of the 13, Lysaria said. "You hid the 3rd flame." Orin nodded slowly. "I did more than hide it," he said. "I severed it from the others. I feared what it would become in the wrong hands, even my own." Irene stepped beside Lysaria, eyes narrowed. "Then why let it stir now?" "Because it calls to her," Orin replied, lifting his head slightly. "And because I am no longer its keeper, she is." He extended one hand, trembling, toward the flame, and the roots above shifted, groaning softly as something deep beneath responded. From within the flame, a coil of blue light unraveled, dancing toward Lysaria. It spiraled around her like mist, entering not through her skin, but her breath, her spine, her memory. the chamber blinked. She was no longer standing. She was falling through visions not her own. She saw Orin, younger, proud, laughing among the 13 as the oath was formed. She saw him arguing as war began, urging them not to fight, but to seal the flame instead. She saw him alone, descending beneath the school as dragons died above, carrying the third flame into the roots, where time moved like water, and waiting became his punishment. Then she saw herself watched by him through flame as years passed. Students came and went, and her mark began to glow brighter than all who came before. The vision shattered gently, like ice breaking over a lake, and Lysaria stood once more, her body glowing faintly with a pale blue shimmer. The third flame was hers. "You carry 3, Orin said, "and still the oath is only partly sung." He stepped down from the throne for the first time in centuries, legs weak, voice steady. "I will not walk beside you, but I will give you what I once sealed away." He removed a ring from his finger black iron, engraved with 13 runes, and handed it to her. This was the circle's bond. Each of us wore one when the oath was spoken. Now one remains. It will guide you to the 4th, if you can find the dragon who forgot their name. Lysaria bowed deeply and said nothing. Some silences are sacred. Kale placed a hand on Orin's shoulder as they passed acknowledgement, not forgiveness. Irene whispered a soft thank you, and the 3 ascended. As the roots closed behind them, the chamber grew dim again. Orin sat once more. The flame pulsed slowly blue, steady, watching. Back above, the school had begun to shift. Clouds churned low over the towers. The students spoke in murmurs of a shadow seen again in the east wing wearing a face too familiar. And the bell rang once and not in celebration, but in warning. Lysaria stood beneath the tree of sky roots, staring at the ring now warm in her hand. It spun slowly, the runes glowing faintly, then brightening in one direction north, toward the spine of the windward mountains. "The dragon, without a name, waits for me," she said, "and when I find them, the oath will be wholer. It will break forever." The sky growled softly above Serathiel, and far beyond the clouds, something ancient turned its gaze back toward the light. The windward mountains rose like shattered sky, their peaks veiled in storm clouds that had not broken in over 100 years. Lysaria stood at the base of the range, cloak pulled tight, the ring in her hand glowing faintly with northern light. Behind her, Kale adjusted the clasp on his bracer, lightning flickering just beneath his skin. Irene checked the leather harness on her wyvern, who paced anxiously, feathers twitching at the scent of rising air. "He waits somewhere up there," said Lysaria softly. "The one who forgot his name. The one who holds the fourth flame." Their journey began with silence, save for the low moan of wind threading through crag and cliff. No birds sang. No beasts stirred. Only the mountains spoke, groaning, shifting, remembering. On the second day, a storm struck without warning. They took shelter in the hollow bones of a fallen sky beast, its rib cage forming a cold cathedral where the fire would not stay lit. "I dreamed of him again," said Lysaria, voice barely above breath. "The dragon. I saw his wings wrapped in chains. He cried out, but no one answered. Dreams are warnings," Kyle murmured. "Or maps. Sometimes both." The next morning, the storm cleared and the ring grew hot. It pulled them toward a narrow ridge cloaked in mist, where the stone curved inward like a bowl of forgotten wind. There, nestled between jagged teeth of mountain, stood a gate. No metal, no stone-only woven air, held together by ancient runes that shimmered and twisted when touched. "This is dragon rot," Irene whispered. No hand but theirs could make it. Lysaria stepped forward and breathed slow, steady. Her breath struck the gate like a key, and it unraveled, parting to reveal a cavern of sky glass and wind-rooted crystal. They entered. The air inside was warmer too warm, and it pulsed like breath, like waiting. At the heart of the cavern, a vast shape lay curled in slumber. A dragon of immense size, its body covered in moss and broken feathers, wings torn and folded inward like arms in sorrow. Its scales shimmered between silver and stormlight, and its chest rose slowly, still breathing. As they stepped closer, the ring in Lysaria's hand flared one final time, then cracked in half. "The bond is near," Kale said, but broken still. Irene stepped back, eyes wide. "There's a second presence here. Something else." Before Lysaria could speak, the cavern trembled, and from behind the dragon's form, a figure emerged, clad in robes of molten black, his face wrapped in silk. But his Aisha's eyes were pale silver, the same eyes worn by the shadow in the school. So close, he whispered, and yet you still do not see it. He is not bound by name. He is bound by me. The dragon stirred, but only slight chains of breath magic wrapped around its limbs, anchored to the very roots of the mountain, kept him sleeping. Lysaria said, "You silenced the last flame. I preserved him." The man replied, "He would have burned the world had he remembered. You wear the oath's shadow," she said, "but you were once part of the flame." He nodded slowly. Orin was not the only one who sealed a flame. I sealed the soul of a god. Gale moved to strike. The figure raised one hand, then wind itself froze in place. "You cannot fight me here. He dreams through me now, and if he wakes the wrong way, you will all burn." Lysaria stepped forward, the three flames within her pulsing in harmony. "Then I will not fight. I will call." She raised her hand and placed it gently on the sleeping dragon's forehead. She did not speak. She breathed, and flame answered. The cavern ignited in light, not fire, not heat, but truth. The chains shattered. The figure screamed as the light struck him, his form unraveling like cloth in wind, revealing only echo beneath. And the dragon opened its eyes. They were endless. They were sky. "Lysaria," it said, "I remember. I am Serathiel, last of the flame-bound titans, and I know your name." She wept, not from fear, not from grief, from knowing. Fourth flame entered her not as fire, but as wing. She rose in the air, lifted by breath, her mark blazing with light too ancient to name. "Now it begins," Serathiel said. "The forging, the final breath." Far beyond the mountains, in halls both mortal and forgotten, the oath stand. All who once turned from it felt the warmth return. The sky broke open as they returned, not from storm, not from battle, but from remembering. Lysaria rode not on wind, but beside it, Serathiel's wings spanning the heavens, each beat humming with forgotten names. Below them, Serathiel burned, not with fire, but with light. The school's towers pulsed with gold and blue. The bell of flame ringing on its own for the first time in centuries. Students stood frozen in awe, their marks glowing as if responding to something they didn't yet understand. Kale and Irene landed first, flame trailing their steps. But it was Lysaria who descended last, glowing, rising, burning, breathing. She was no longer a girl of the valley. She was Oathborn. In the grand Aetherium, the air trembled as Serathiel folded his wings around the dome and whispered to all within, "I remember, and so shall you." Lysaria stepped to the center, raising her hand not in power, but in offering. From her chest rose 4 flames, each one a different breath: fire, silence, memory, and wing. They circled her once, then hovered above the oath stone, cracked since the breaking. She spoke, voice quiet as ash. "I do not restore what was lost. I forge what must be new. No oath can bind what will not breathe. So I breathe now, not for myself, but for all." The flames merged, not as one, but as many together. The oath stone healed. Its runes glowed, not with fire, but with belonging. The bell rang again. Across the continent, dragons lifted their heads from caves and clouds. Flamekeepers felt the warmth return to marks, thought long dead. In the east, a forgotten sea calmed. In the west, the hollow mountains sighed. And in the heart of Serathiel, Lysaria opened her eyes, golden, endless sky. Serathiel lowered his head beside her. "It is done, but it is only beginning." She nodded, tears running, breath steady. "No more silence," she said. "No more shadows." The students stepped forward one by one, placing their hands over their hearts and breathing. Not to control, not to destroy, but to remember. Because that was always the truth of the oath. Not flame, not power, only breath, freely given. And in that breath, the sky was whole again. Enjoy the sounds of nature.